American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
2016, year of the snake. Time for a change in the White House, y'all. Liberty. Bring it.
How you doing, folks?
If you want a real leader, you gotta get a real leader.
I'm a real leader.
Need a real man. Build a wall, deal with all them terrorists. America needs a man that can. If you wanna feel safe in your own backyard,
Good to see you guys. Click the share button as you pop into the room. We're going to talk about all the important things. All the important things. We're going to lay out exactly what's happening, how it's happening, and yeah. What we can do. We're going to listen to, we're going to talk about what the president's doing, what he's been saying. How's it going, Becky? Some very interesting strategy, guys. Very interesting strategy. As always, I'm pretty impressed with our president. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in just a minute. Let me see. I want to go over here just doing some shares. I'm just clicking some shares, you guys. Letting folks know what we're doing. Make America great again. Yes, I do, Chris. I think it's physically impossible. We're going to talk about that too. We will talk about all of them. Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind that insanity is insanity. But we'll talk. We'll let people come on into the room. Click the share button. Click the share button.
Do you like having the right to bear arms? Protect your family? What about the ability to work a job? Have jobs available too?
Hey, City, how's it going? There's my monkey. Good to see you.
This name starts with a D and ends with a Trump.
Oh, good. How high? Make America work again. Make America work again. Gotta go back to it. And I am not alone. This is what I find funny about the fear shamers, is that every day goes by more and more people see the reality of what is happening. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. You're watching Trump Talk US live here in DC. I am with Suzzanne Monk, by the way, and I'm Suzzanne Monk. We're 8 minutes away from our nation's beautiful capital. We're about 15 minutes away from the White House. And we, of course, have Chris McDonald representing Trump Talk US here in the room. Thank you for doing that, my Monkin. He's sharing links. Saying hello to everybody, just sort of keeping the peace over here on the Facebook Trump Talk US page. I want to thank, of course, my good friend, Diane Ventura and the Trump Towel for just doing such a great job having these beautiful towels. Have you guys seen these? They have the bath towel, wonderful rally towel. They have bandanas sold out. They're going to have to get more bandanas. Keep an eye out for that. The golf towel is coming out. Love these guys. Love these guys. So. Feel free to record me saying it. Yes. Feel free to record me saying, well, let's have a conversation. You know, we're here to have fun today. I want to talk about the plot. I want to talk about what the president has been saying. But I also, I want to always show you guys about these fear shamers. And fear shamers actually are one. I'm glad you're in here, Chris, because you're actually perfect timing. I needed a volunteer to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about, because one of the things I wanted to discuss with you all is how you are going, when you are going out in the world and talking to people about your opinion that the Constitution should be respected. All right. About your opinion that not every state needs to be shut down, that many of these shutdown measures are draconian and have nothing to do with social distancing or preventing people from being able to spread a virus to one another. In fact, sometimes the methods that they say are social distancing actually make another situation worse. So as we know, ridiculous situation. Ridiculous situation. We're letting prisoners out to protect them from the virus, but we're arresting people and putting them in jail because of the virus. Doesn't make any sense. We all know many of those things don't make sense. But when you start saying that online, when you start talking about your questions, righteous questions, you don't even have to be like me. You don't have to be like, we need to reopen America. We need to stop these shutdowns. This doesn't work. You don't even need to be that adamant. You just literally have to ask, well, when do we plan to open up? When do we plan to get our jobs back? How do we plan to get our jobs back? Even if you ask those questions, you'll get people like Chris. Chris is what we call a fear shamer. He's actually a germo-fascist because he uses threats of physical violence. He uses threats. This is obviously designed to intimidate me into thinking that I somehow, I need to be afraid because they're going to record what I'm saying. And then they're going to somehow hold me liable for other people's choices to live their lives and for me making my own choice to live my life. And it's just designed to make everyone really nervous. And they don't want to I don't want to mess anything up. I don't want to do anything wrong. That's where we're at. But that doesn't change the reality of the opinions that I'm stating. That's and facts that I'm stating. The simple facts that we are all stating. One, we deserve some level of certainty and some level of a plan on how we are going to get the economy back. Whether you want to stay in the house, whether you think the whole world should be wearing masks, you still want a plan. You still want a plan. Everybody, as an American citizen, the governors and the mayors, they are not our kings. They are not our lords. They are our elected officials. They work for us. We deserve a plan. We need to understand the evidence that our specific state is using for their reasoning for shutting things down. That is a fact. We all of us, even Chris, wherever, even if he's, I don't even know, he could be Canadian. They love to bother me. Then Trudeau owes you a plan, you guys. Then your whatever, your territory owes you a plan. I don't Canada, so I don't know what you guys do up there, Yukon or Quebec, or I don't know what you're doing. So whichever that is, your local, maybe your mayor, maybe the mayor of Toronto. I don't know what they're doing up there shutting down. I don't pay attention to what Canadians are doing. We have enough problems here in the United States. The point remains, these kind of people are going to try to fear shame you. Don't listen. Don't listen, because you are asking reasonable questions. It is okay to ask reasonable questions. It is okay to look at the evidence coming in and say, yes, but you said this many deaths are going to happen. And then actually the number is significantly, extremely lower than that. Someone needs to be held accountable. And that brings me back to talking about understanding what Trump is saying. If you were watching President Trump speak at the press conferences lately, and if you have been listening to him, he has been distancing himself more and more from the numbers and putting those numbers more and more on the experts. Okay. The experts are the ones making these drastic, maniacal positions that have not yet proven accurate, even up to this point. The predictions they had even up to this point have proven vastly false. Now, as we're destroying the economy, as we're seeing 32, 33, 34 going on percent unemployment in the United States in a week period, as we're seeing 10 million new unemployment claims, jobless claims in the US over the past 2 reporting cycles, and that does not count the last 7 days. As you know, they report them, it takes a week for everybody to catch up. They report them once a week. So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing massive job losses, massive unemployment, massive economic distress. Why? Because people like this. Because people who want us to be afraid, who want to ignore the facts, who don't want to understand science, human immunity, or even rational recommendations, where we see governors and mayors banning the use of hydrochloroquine when we are seeing repeated results for a drug that's both affordable and already on the market. Now, why does hydrochloroquine work so well? It increases your body's ability to take zinc, to absorb zinc. That's what it does. The zinc is really what's helping you. How's it going, Tracy? Good to see you. Good to see you. So, and then they get angry. As they fear shame you, they get angry. They claim that you are spreading disease. That you are spreading disease. So I want to talk about that for a second. Because this is the fallacy. This is the fallacy that the whole entire quarantine premise is built on. It is built on this idea that we can separate ourselves as human beings, that we can separate ourselves enough from one another to prevent exposing one another to germs, viruses, pathogens. We cannot. It's not humanly possible in our society. As you know, people need to pick up boxes of food, put the boxes of food on the truck. People need to drive the truck. People need to take the boxes of food off the truck. People need to put the food in the shelves. Okay, now they're touching the food. I was just watching the lady. She's got gloves. She's got her mask. The grocery store is doing its part. But some woman has to still stand there and put my food on the display. Okay. And then you can't pick avocados. You can't, how hard it is to buy avocados in the era of these fear shamers. Because how can I test an avocado? You pick up the first avocado. Okay. If it's not a perfect avocado, just like we always used to do, we put the avocado back down. We pick another one. We squeeze a few. Now people look at you funny because you're squeezing all the avocados. This is the problem. We can't live like that. We don't live like that. We don't travel like that. We don't house ourselves like that. We don't feed ourselves like that. We do not live in 6 to 27 foot bubbles apart from one another. We just do not. And for good reason, because our immune systems are actually designed to interact with one another. Our immune systems are actually designed to experience a novel virus like what we see. Experience a novel virus like we're seeing with this SARS-CoV-2, allegedly, SARS-CoV-2. As we humans have not seen it before, we have no antibodies built up to it. But as we are exposed, many of us become asymptomatic, but we still build up antibodies. That's why they're talking about an antibody test. We heard about them talking about producing an antibody test, a test that actually detects antibodies for coronavirus. Interestingly enough, we do not have enough science to know if antibodies for other coronaviruses, other than SARS-CoV-2, would provide some level of immunity. And that is physically possible. If there's a strong similarity with the virus, that immunity may, in fact, weaken the virus. You know what else we can do? You can take your zinc, you can take your vitamin C, you can take your A and your D. Those things are actually going to be weakening the virus's ability to get in your body. Okay, it will be strengthening your immune system and actually creating almost a physical barrier to your cells with the zinc. Now, let me show you how the fear shamers get even a little worse, and then we'll see. And then they say this, and you're going to see massive deaths, but we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. In fact, let's look up just while we're on this topic. While we're on the topic, we can look this up right here, right now. We can tell you exactly how there are only 59,000 deaths globally. Globally. So what we're talking about when they say 100,000, 250,000 deaths, they're saying several times the entire globe. So our death toll is a fraction of that global total. Okay. If what we're talking about is this global total, 59,000, we in the United States only have 7,391. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about where some of those deaths are coming from and how they're being recorded. But we don't even have the 9,000. We can't even, the rest of the world would have millions and millions and millions of deaths, which we haven't seen. The history of pandemic shows we have not seen that in the modern era. They love to compare the Spanish flu. Does anybody remind you that the Spanish flu hit during World War I? That a lot of the deaths occurred because of damp trench warfare situations where people are on top of each other, where we literally saw a lot of those deaths were soldiers. Did they tell you any of that? Did they remember that? Or did they just talk about the Spanish flu like everybody was just sitting home peaceful and they weren't over there, fighting Germany? So this is what they do. This is what they do. Now, the reality of the situation is, as I've said, and as I will say, and I will continue to say, it is not, neither is it physically possible for us to social distance, nor is it the best decision to social distance. Because as we are exposed to a novel virus, right? Particularly one in this fashion. This isn't the plague. It's not an Ebola. This is something that the vast majority of people who are exposed are able to recover from very easily. In fact, 95% of people are not critical. If you look at worldometers excuse me. If you look at worldometers whatever net, I believe, they have an excellent constant chart telling you each and every country. You can even click on the US. You can look at each and every state and find out how many deaths, how many cases in your state, how many recoveries, how many new deaths, how many new cases, etc. Great information. They've been up to date on all of it. And what we're seeing is just not matching these fear mongers' predictions. Now, what we are also seeing, and a lot of folks are seeing this nationwide now, Candace Owens has been talking about this. We are seeing more and more journalists start to push back against the shutdowns, start to talk about the economy. But I really appreciate Candace Owens has even gone a step further and started talking about specifically what's going on in our hospitals. And what we are finding from a great deal of reports from family members who have had a family member who has passed away from some other condition, say a chronic condition that it was expected at some point they would pass away, cancer, for example. So that elderly person or that loved one died from their cancer, but we are having, as I talked about, the antibodies test, we're able to test for the antibody post-mortem, meaning after death. And if the antibody is there, and I've now read the report, the medical direction, when you're filling out the autopsy report, there is the cause of death, and then there's a secondary, a place for secondary conditions. What they have been instructed, if COVID-19 antibodies are present, COVID-19 should be put in the first slot in cause of death. So that's what you're going to read first. And then underlying conditions, they literally, I've shared it on my page and you can take a look at it. Underlying conditions should be listed on the secondary line. So I know they're trying to make sure that we calculate every single COVID death, but the reality of the situation is that they are counting deaths that are not COVID deaths. They're counting deaths. Oh, elderberry is great, Denise. Good call. They're counting deaths that are unrelated, that are cancer, that are lung disease, that are completely other diseases that individuals have had for a chronic period of time. Family members know very well what they've died of. There are nurses who are reporting that they have had one cause of death on the report when the individual, the nurses, when the doctors, person dies, they have to fill out their paperwork, and then that goes, of course, to the morgue, and that's a different medical team, as we know. Standard stuff. That form being changed after it leaves the nurses and the doctor's hands, there has been individuals, medical professionals, who are reporting that. In fact, several states have started to forbid medical professionals from speaking to the media or speaking out on social media about the material, the equipment shortages, the protection shortages, and I am certain about some of these anomalies that we're seeing across the country. Excuse me. I got a little, when you breathe in a little water and you get down the wrong pipe and then you're coughing the whole thing. Isn't this ridiculous that if you just have a normal clearing of your throat, you have to explain yourself all? It's so stupid. You're not going to get the COVID from watching this screen, you guys. Nobody's getting the Rona from watching this show. How's it going, Michelle? Let's catch up with everybody. I know, Cindy, it really is. Sharon, good to see you. Yes, Sharon, we are still doing prayer meetings in public. We go down in front of DC City Hall and we pray. On Sundays, we continue to do that. We're going to continue to do that. Let me explain to you why it's so important that we push back. I don't, Denise. I don't. And it was an unfortunate, Denise is talking about the death of one of our front row Joes. Here, let me pull this up. And I do not. It's interesting to find out. There have been friends of mine who have had an individual that in their friend group or in their social network that has died from the virus. And, they would say, oh, but they didn't have any conditions. And then come to find out 2 or 3 days later, you know what? They had a pre-existing condition I didn't know about. They didn't tell anybody. Right. You have to be really careful. We have to be really careful making assumptions unless you're hearing things from the families, unless you're hearing things, from people who are in the know. The misinformation train has left the station and it is running wild down the tracks, you guys. It is running wild, wild, wild. The misinformation train on all sides, has lost its way. Cindy says they Yes. This is interesting. See, they manipulate pain meds, death the same way, even though the person died of fentanyl or heroin death, they blame opiates. Yes, there's ways that they will manipulate, and that is what they are using that exact protocol on COVID-19. So I'm just trying to make sure I got everybody's questions before we moved on. Yes. No, nobody's grocery store has mask or gloves. As you know, in the press conference, the CDC is recommending masks, but the president was very clear to state that is voluntary and he does not intend to be wearing a mask, nor do I intend to be wearing a mask. It is the most stupid recommendation. We already are living in a shortage. We already have a shortage of masks, of gloves. Medical facilities are in desperate need of this equipment. And what our CDC, which I'm sorry, I don't think the CDC is doing Trump justice in any way. CDC, I don't think you're helping the president. I think you're hurting the president, and I think you're hurting the country. And not supporting the CDC does not mean I do not support the president. I support the president. And the president has been pushing back and certainly distancing himself. We're going to talk about that next. But this mask situation, the president was very clear. He's not going to wear a mask, and it is an entirely voluntary situation. Now, here is what's so important. It's not just about having our rights, which it is fundamentally, of course, about having our rights. But it's not just about that. It's not just that the Constitution is being undermined. That, in fact, the government does not, nowhere in the Constitution does it say, if there's a pandemic, the government can come in and take away all of these. None of these rules apply if there's a pandemic. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Constitution. I've searched it several times. I can tell you for certain, it does not say that in the Constitution. So, You know, it becomes a little bit ridiculous when you are talking to people who actually believe that somehow, because there is this virus, we somehow can give up our rights without question. That the government doesn't have to explain to us, that we don't deserve a plan, we don't deserve a reason. I find that absolutely ridiculous. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to pull this up. Randall is saying, Randall, Suzzanne, we're having a virtual flag drop tomorrow at 12 noon Central Time. Randall, what does that mean, and how do we participate? How do we participate in the virtual flag drop? I think it's so important to show our support for our country. We need to bring that American spirit. This virus has divided everybody. So I'm going to let Randall respond to the virtual flag drop. I'm going to just leave this up here. Randall, I'm going to leave your comment up here until you tell us how we can do that. No, Fauci is not helping Trump at all. You're absolutely right, Cindy. Ode718 over here from Twitter is saying, oh, good. Here, I'm going to show this real quick. This is the Facebook link, you guys, in Randall's comments. So click over on the Facebook link. I will share this to my page. Chris, if you can maybe share this to Trump Talk page, or share it to your page, or, you know, we'll share it. Make sure we share this. This is what I want to say. So thank you, Randall. Thank you. That way everybody can participate. Great. Denise says she's going to. That's perfect. Randall says that is the link. We will be on Zoom Cloud. Wonderful. I love Zoom. And Denise is working on getting the Alabama Women for Trump involved. That's fantastic. Fantastic. Here is what I am watching the president do. And I think it's important. We continue to show support. We continue to also guide our president. You know, there have been many times where we have had a conversation with our president via social media, via messaging, letters, via an outcry. You know, particularly once we start to see our citizen journalists, our alt journalists, certainly not the mainstream journalists, but more of our right-wing pundits, etc., start to bring up an issue, the president does in fact pick up that issue. And so we are actually starting to see that now. We are starting to see that with Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, many folks, Glenn Beck, many folks talking about what is happening with the shutdowns, what is happening with the virus panic, how they are using it to manipulate, and the dangerous situation that we are putting us in. Wonderful. Randall says we're going to be doing this each Saturday going forward, which is fantastic, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to show you this one, because every one of the fear shamers, there are some right-wing fear shamers. I'm not telling you they're not, but it ultimately it comes down to they're just TDS folks. They just don't like the president. They just don't like the president, and they literally believe that if we just keep the economy shut down long enough, they'll be able to defeat him in November. And frankly, if we do keep the economy shut down long enough, they will. They're absolutely right, actually. If we do not start to show our president the kind of support he needs to move us towards reopening. Here, I want to show you the president is preparing himself to be able to do that. And he is doing an excellent job at making sure that the economic blame for these shutdowns and the greater depression, the new depression that we are now in, the 32% unemployment rate, these huge problems we're having economically with business shutdown, he is working very hard to make sure that it's the states and the governors that actually own that blame. So he is preparing us a situation where we as Trump supporters will be able to actually pull in a lot of voters, to actually pull people who wouldn't have been Trump supporters in the first place, but because they are seeing what the Democrats and what the deep state and what the rhinos and what the never Trumpers, the people who hate Trump, what they're doing, they can see that, and they see what the president has been trying to do. And when they see the president trying to get our jobs back, get our economy back going, they are going to respond positively. And that is, of course, the plan is to continue to hold out as long as possible, which is why we're seeing these extensions go on, which is why we're seeing continued panic. We're seeing this up and down of the different numbers. We see President Trump being very excited that we get back. We were talking about Easter. We see the fear-mongering pressure him. And then we, of course, see the date change, but we see the president still pushing back even now, stating some very interesting things. One, he's talking specifically about the data when he is asked about the data that we are using to base these shutdowns on. As you all know, somewhere in here, where is mine? I'm pretty sure we have my stupid, now defunct, because it's all, it's no longer accurate because, of course, these predictions were entirely wrong chart. Here it is. Here's my entirely wrong chart that we used to shut down the country, but we didn't need to. This chart, our flattening the curve chart, the infamous flattening the curve chart. This information, the president is continuing to distance himself, saying that it is the doctors, Fauci, Birx, who provided the information, who are continuing to give the numbers 100,000, 250,000. And if those numbers are not accurate, it is on the doctors. It is on the doctors that it is their failure. And I agree, actually. The president looks to these experts for advice. Now, what I suspect is as the president moves in that direction and starts to really be able to address the fact that these numbers are not adding up and the panic caused such an economic crash. So I think the president will be able to, at that point, utilize this distancing. The same thing he's doing actually with the states, that it's not him who's saying the shutdowns, it is the states. The same thing with him saying that clarifying, which I appreciate very much, Mr. President, clarifying that he considers mask wearing a suggestion, a voluntary suggestion, and in no way does he intend to wear a mask, nor does he think it should be required. So this is what the president is making it clear, that one, he understands the economic problems that we are experiencing. Is he being a little hopeful that some of these programs with the SBA, the Small Business Association, these stimulus checks, etc., that these are going to actually be able to resolve the problem? Yeah, I think the president is actually being a little overly optimistic. To be honest, I love my president, but I think he's being a little overly optimistic how quickly those solutions that we're applying. But he's applying more and more solutions. They are certainly continuing to work on every possible way. They're being very proactive. They are working on doing things differently, thinking outside of the box, and I do appreciate that. This is a crisis made from a man-made response to a virus. Where the virus came from, we can debate that all day long. We're finding out more and more things with Bill Gates' involvement and his relationship with pushing the vaccine, his recent pressure to support the Remain movement, the Remain Inside movement, to continue to encourage us to engage in social distancing, which is not possible, and two, not functioning. It's not functioning for our economy. Dan Bongino, many other voices are reaching out and actually starting to say that. They're actually starting to say, not only is it not working in that the spread is still happening, we still see New York, we still see deaths happening, but and we're complaining constantly. We say, oh, people are out in the park. Well, everybody's out of work. I kind of think it'd actually be better if we were all in our cubicles, and then if you were sick, you were staying home. But what we're seeing is the government infusing itself, picking winners and losers, and even now in grocery stores across the country, picking what products you can buy, what products it considers essential. The government is going to tell you what's essential. So if, for example, you're at Walmart and you need a new pair of shoes because your shoes have worn out, you have holes in the bottom of your shoes would be considered non-essential. And they would say you can't go shopping for shoes. You can only buy essential things. Who's deciding what's essential for you? Who's deciding what's essential for me? Government is not to be doing those things. I really appreciate that the president was very clear on his not being willing to wear a mask. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what's actually happening with the World Health Organization and with the New World Order and with this global panic that has swept the world. Whether or not you believe that the Chinese created the virus, whether you think Bill Gates, these are all possibilities. And there's certainly, I don't disagree with anybody's evidence, but I'm just going to say, whatever you think about the virus itself, if you think the virus is SARS-CoV-2 and it's actually spreading, but it's just not that bad, or as many people have suggested, the test that they are administering actually measures for any coronavirus. And so there are coronaviruses other than SARS-CoV-2, and we're testing for that, and we're finding coronavirus in all these different people. Well, of course, because the common cold, different flus, they are also caused by coronavirus. If you are looking for antibodies, and this is something we don't know, if you are looking for antibodies, is the test specific enough to determine SARS-CoV-2 antibodies versus another coronavirus? These are this is information we don't know. And frankly, that's one of the questions we asked earlier. Is immunity to other coronaviruses? If you've been exposed to another coronavirus, does that help you have an immunity to this coronavirus? And many say no, it's novel, but we don't know the answer to that. That's something also that has to be scientific. Yes, this is here. Randall says they shut down the garden centers in Walmart and are not allowing moms to bring in their kids. Which, Randall, isn't that so frustrating? This is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying the policies aren't working. Even if you want to believe that we can all stand 6 feet away from each other and no germs are going to spread, which even the CDC, listen, let's just make everybody understand this real quick. Okay. If you could stop the spread of the virus, okay, this is what they said was going to happen. It was going to go way above the hospital capacity rate. What they want you to do is stay inside, give up the Constitution, don't go to church, don't exercise your religion, don't assemble anywhere, be threatened with jail time if you happen to have 11 friends with you at any given moment. So all of those things were just designed to spread out. You're hearing what I'm saying? To spread out the illness. Okay. Some people think it was this. Okay. Some people think that, we just all stay inside and then no spread. Nobody gets the illness. That's not what happens. That's not what is going to happen. And certainly that's not what's going to happen if you have ridiculous policies like this that are designed to fail. How can you put kids out of school and then tell the moms can't bring the kids in the store? Where am I supposed to put the kids when I need to buy essentials? We are a society of people. Human beings are a social society. We have always been a social society. Nothing has changed. We depend on one another for food. We depend on one another for shelter. We have to help each other. Oh, that'd be great, Sharon. I will see. Yeah, I think that'd be great. But perfect timing. That's society. We're going to be in physical contact with each other because every process we have purchasing even the necessary goods for life. But let's look at what they shut down first. They shut down art. They shut down entertainment. They shut down the things that make us most beautifully human. And for this reason, and many, many more reasons, we have to find a better solution. This solution of shutting down jobs, shutting down millions of people's work paychecks, destroying thousands and perhaps millions of businesses. This is not a functional method to addressing any pandemic. This is why we've never done it this way. And this is why we will continue to do that. And this is why it doesn't matter how many fear shamers tell me I'm a dangerous person for telling you facts. For telling you facts. And then they wish for people to die. This is how they are. You don't have to respect these people. You don't have to respect people who literally say to you, oh, a lot of people are going to die and you'll be wrong. You'll see how many people die. It's a disturbing behavior. It's a mentally disturbed behavior. These people should be getting treatment, but all unnecessary treatment is shut off because of people like our little fear shamers here. Now, here's what's unfortunate about that. There are people who are not receiving medical treatment for cancer surgeries. They're not receiving appropriate kidney treatment, dialysis appointments, many other chronic illnesses that are not emergencies. So you don't have a gunshot wound, you're not bleeding to death, you're not unconscious, are being pushed back. And this is actually you can't keep doing that. You can't keep taking these appointments, which were vital already, and pushing them back merely because they're not emergent. They're not life or death. Especially when what we're seeing across the country are hospitals that certainly have the capacity to take care of not only these patients, but many other patients. Many other patients. Yep, Randall, 100%. But you can still go get an abortion. You can't get your cancer tumor removed. You can't go to your dialysis appointment. You can't get your chronic wellness treatment. If you're recovering from an injury, you can't go to physical therapy. Not going. In 2009, I broke my leg. I was sitting in a wheelchair. I had to relearn to walk once I was able to get out of the cast. I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have sat longer, making it much harder for me to recover. And this is what's happening to all kinds of people across the country. It is becoming harder and harder for them to recover. Their medical conditions are being worsened by the lack of treatment they're able to get. So that's not a solution. It's okay, even if you are concerned about the virus. There are many people on the spectrum of concern, okay? Some people are huggers. Other people, they wear their masks. They don't want to touch anybody. They're nervous. But wherever you are on the spectrum, you deserve to have a reasonable plan. You deserve to have whatever they're doing should be working. It should be explained. And it should be explained how the problems it's created are going to be rectified. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm saying. Randall, I'm going to put this up. Randall says, I had my major back surgery put off, and that sucks because I was so wanting to be done with the pain. And here, Randall is now going to deal with additional pain. And of course, I know my fellow patriot is very strong and sturdy and is able to handle it. But there are many people who are unable to handle it. The emotional stress, the physiological stress, sometimes of pain management becomes too much. People become addicted to painkillers in a period of time trying to manage their pain. And they actually even become mentally depressed, suicidal. This all happens. This all happens to people dealing with chronic pain. Now, I know Randall is going to get through it. He's got a great friend group, and he loves this country, and he's certainly not going to let a back pain, if I know my Randall, he's not going to let back pain stand in his way. But it's unfair. It's unfair for him to have to endure further pain, not because the hospital isn't capable. It's not like we're seeing these thousands of patients in most of these these states across the country. We're seeing a lot in New York. Florida has bumped up. California, New Jersey actually doing very well at keeping the death rate down in New Jersey. So we still should have the ability. In fact, what we're seeing with the USS Mercy and the other hospital ship that's in the LA harbor, we're seeing they just don't have that many patients. They were pulled into the harbor to be non-COVID ships, and they don't have any patients. Well, you know why they don't have any patients? Is everybody was told to stay home. Their appointments got canceled. So they're only going to be seeing people who are emergency situations, people who have been stabbed, shot, having a heart attack right now, giving birth. They're not giving birth on the boat. So, yeah, so they've had to actually consider revamping and using those as an all facility. We're going to use them for COVID patients now because you're not letting anything else go to the hospital. And it's kind of funny This is exactly the kind of plan I feel is ill-advised. If we are seeing an elderly population, only 20 on the comfort in New York, thank you. If we are seeing an elderly population, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, that already has pre-existing conditions, people who have cancer, people who have diabetes, people who have lung disease, other issues, upper respiratory issues, if they cannot go and see their doctor and get treatment, their immune systems are going to be taxed by that disease. And now they are at greater risk of catching the virus and dying from the virus. If you're literally telling me what we're doing, this is what it's so stupid. If you're telling me what we're doing is we're shutting down everybody's job, we're killing the economy, we're killing the arts community, we're killing the restaurant industry, we're killing all of these things so that we can save grandma. But grandma can't go to the doctor to get her treatment. So grandma can't go to the doctor to get her treatment. So she's actually going to get sicker just from her regular, already pre-existing conditions, making her thus more vulnerable. Yeah, Randall, I think they set it up that way. I read an article today, and I would have to verify it, that it has been asked if they will change over, and the president mentioned something like they're looking at it, they're looking into changing over because they're not having enough patients this way. So I don't even think it'll be necessary. I don't know. Will it be necessary? I don't know what New York is doing. I don't think they're handling the situation very well, mostly because Cuomo is out here back and forth. One day he loves the president. The next day he hates the president. Needs 40,000 ventilators. I don't even think he knows where he's going to put all the ventilators. He still has ventilators he hasn't used yet. It's kind of like a kid when you give them a scoop of ice cream and they're like, no, I want 5 scoops. And you're like, kid, you can't even eat the 1 scoop you got in your bowl. How about this? You eat that one, I'll give you another one. I'll give you another one. So, yeah, this is unfortunate, Randall. This is unfortunate, as you say. And one of our Trump Front Row Joes lost one of our original members because the virtual doctor said he should write it out because he was only 24. And this is certainly, we're not getting the kind of care that's required of just general health. It's another way that the plan isn't working. So we need to reopen up appointments, particularly for our vulnerable individuals who have pre-existing conditions. They need to be continuing to go to the doctor and keeping those pre-existing conditions as healthy and as safe as possible so that it reduces their likelihood that they are going to die from the virus. I agree, Sharon. I'm just saying I think they're having both discussions because it's kind of ridiculous how few other patients there are they have 2,900 beds on this boat, as I am told, and they had 3. So 20 people, they had 20 people on it. So they had very, very few people. It's unfortunate. Now, before we close out, I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing the president have to endure, because as we've discussed, the president is working hard to prepare to open up the economy going forward in the future. He is certainly at the mercy of this plan right now. Whether they're inflating the deaths, which we're actually getting more and more evidence that Italy also had similar death inflating patterns, whether they're inflating the deaths or not, whether we are seeing the peak or not, whether these predictions, which cannot possibly be true, but whether they're true or not, can't mathematically be true, nonetheless. What we are going to see going forward is, of course, still this panic-demic. We are still going to see the media. The media has gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. It's even more COVID all the time. And now we are seeing commercials, and our regular commercials. Everybody has to have their little somber music with their COVID-19 information. Every single, your bank card, your knitting club, your Joann's reward card, your gas station card, everybody has to send you their COVID information. It's all to push. It's all to continue to push so that you feel nervous, so that you feel willing to continue to concede more and more time where the economy is shut down. Now, That's a finite amount of time. Even the president himself said, and I'm very specific, we only have 10 weeks of liquidity. So even the country itself cannot continue to pump money out like this without printing it. And as we know, they've already printed so many. So we have to start having a rational plan. I think one of the most important things to having a rational plan starts with having not every state have the same plan. As you might have noticed, your liberal friends, your Democrat friends, Bill Gates, all pushing for the same plan across the country. Well, that doesn't even make any sense. We certainly aren't experiencing the same disease load across the country. We do not have the same medical facilities across the country. We do not have the same urban centers or distance from individuals across the country. Even from county to county, we have drastically different situations. So we are looking, excuse me, we are looking at each state having to make their own decision based on their own information. Now, what we've seen is a lot of pressure in each and every state that has shut down, even red states that has shut down, have felt a lot of pressure from people just like our fear shamer right here. So if you've lost your job, if your company is shut down, if you are deemed non-essential, what you need to do is blame your governor, blame your mayor, blame whoever it is that put the shutdown order in place. And that's the person you're going to want to call and you're going to complain to. But you're also going to want to call the White House and let them know that you support the president and that you want the president to bring our jobs back, that the economy is important to you, that you want safety, but you want the economy to come back. A very simple statement. I support the president. I know he is doing the best for our economy. I mean, he's doing the best for this disease situation. I want him to know we support going back to work. We support states making their own decisions. We support people not being forced to wear masks. We support our liberties being protected. We want our churches reopened. These are the kind of things that we can say to the White House as well. We should be calling our governors, our senators, our governors, our mayors, and of course, the White House. Yes, I was glad. Yes, I was glad to hear Chris says this. I was glad to hear Trump say each state has their own laws, and that was constitutional. Yes, each state does have their own laws, and each state. Here's what's wonderful because of the 14th Amendment. Each state has an obligation to protect our constitutional liberties. So the state itself, if it violates the Constitution, the state is held liable for that constitutional violation, not the federal government, the state. The federal government just made a suggestion. And if you read the CDC guidelines, as we've talked about so many times on this show, the CDC guidelines do not suggest we shut down. The CDC guidelines do not suggest that we lose all our jobs. The CDC guidelines do not suggest all of these ridiculous draconian measures. They suggest hand washing. They suggest safety precautions. They suggest staying home if you are sick. They suggest working from home if possible. It doesn't say shut down. It doesn't say restaurants can't be open. It doesn't say hair salons can't be open. It doesn't say that. It doesn't even say schools should be open, should be closed. It doesn't. It has a whole guidelines of how you should be cleaning the school, taking care of the reduction of infection. It is the states that are engaging in the shutdown. We know that the Democrats are deeply involved with the World Health Organization. Many of their connections are also, many of the deep state Democrats certainly well connected with the UN folks with their anti-Israel stance, which, by the way, the World Health Organization neglected to even label Israel on its map on its coronavirus front page about the Middle East. So very interesting, but very anti-Semitic. You have to pay attention to these things. So we see the Democrats who have been involved with those exact people, and it is those organizations, the World Health Organization, the UN, and we're going to see the World Bank come in as a player very quickly, coming up very soon, as we've talked about on the show several times before. They're not our friends. They're not our friends. They're not here to help us. They're here to try to bring down our economy. We're actually in a timed race with utter collapse. And this is why I've been pushing so hard for Reopen America. I've been working so hard to get people to participate in our citizen governance. Call your governor, call your mayor. We did our whole Wednesday show on how you call your governor, how you call your mayor, how to have, let's just review. I think it's all on top. I think it's all on top here. Yeah, writing 2 sentences. We did all this. Writing 2 sentences, right? I write 2 sentences that address your issue. You're calling the president, for example, because here, casting director says, I support the president, as do I support the president. And I understand that the president needs the American people to give him the ability to tell the fear-mongering doctors to be quiet because the American people want to get back to work. They care about them. We haven't told him that. And it's very simple. You know, he's waiting for us to stand up and say that. He's waiting for us to stand up and say, let's get back to work. We, the American people. So even if you're calling the White House, write 2 sentences. Your first sentence can be, I support the president. I think the president is doing a great job. And I want to let him know I'm ready to get back to work as soon as possible. We want to get back to work. Add a 3rd sentence. 2 very simple things. I like what the president is doing. We want to get back to work. Your 2 sentences. That's how you would call the president. Very simple. Very simple. Number 2, make a list of points. We want to get back to work. We want our churches to be open. We want our constitutional right to assemble. Whatever you want to add, put it in an email. Email is great. Send it in a letter. Send it in an email. It's a great way to get to the White House. Call and keep calling. Leaving a written message is really a great way to call. Leaving a written message if you get a person. And call back. If you get a letter, folks are saying, I've written my governor, I've called my governor, I got a form letter back. Yes. Yes. Form letter back. Right back. Did they answer your question? Right back. Now, I'm going to put this up. So you support the president, but casting rhetoric, I got to call you out on this. We need to get past the virus, then back to normal. Here's the thing. We're not, I got to break it to everybody. We're not going to get past this virus. What did you just say, Suzzanne? We're not going to get past. We're not going to get past the virus. We're going to get through the novel component of the virus in which people are exposed enough to where immunity is built up and it is no longer a novel virus. That's what we're going to accomplish. That is what happens to viruses. That is what happens to novel viruses. Novel meaning a new virus, a virus we have not seen. It mutated, and now it's a form that the human body has not been exposed to yet. So it's a new virus. Once a virus, these people are like, oh, well, it'll come back every year. Well, yeah, because it's a novel virus. And now, once we have been exposed to it, it's not novel anymore, but it doesn't go away. It doesn't just disappear. Some viruses can die out over time. Some viruses do not. Some viruses become normalized in the cycle of viruses. Depends on the individual virus, to be fair. So we're not going to get past it. What we are going to get past is the continued misinformation and fear-based knee-jerk reactions that we are seeing, that's putting chain link fences up in front of parks so that people don't bring their children to the park, that's putting blockading different types of goods inside stores because the state says that you cannot purchase these items. These draconian measures, that's what we're going to get past. And we're going to get past that eventually. We're going to get past that eventually through maintaining reasonable understandings of not just what the experts say, but what reality is, what experts other than these two, other than the ones all linked up with the World Health Organization and friends of Bill Gates and Hillary Clinton and the Bush family and everybody that hates the president. Maybe we could find some experts that weren't so obviously connected with everybody who has tried to destroy the president and destroy America. That'd be great. I would just like some experts that, in fact, we do have some of those experts, and they're saying a lot of the same things I'm talking about. They're talking about the great treatment methods that are possible with things like zinc, vitamin C, what we're seeing with hydrochloroquine and why that's so responsive, because it's used with zinc. When you use it with zinc, it actually is nearly 100% success rate on the 600, 700 patients that the doctor was doing it. So we certainly are seeing some amazing things, and we are continuing. We need to continue to work towards supporting our president. Those of us who are healthy, we have to trust adult choices. We have to give ourselves. This is the country we were born in. This is the country we were given. We were not given a country that can be taken away because the government needs to protect us from something, merely because they have decided falsely that this something can kill off the whole population, as if it's some sort of nuclear weapon that can get passed from person to person, when in fact it's not. And the human experience has been much more affected by sicknesses, by viruses, by pandemics than it has by this particular disease, certainly. So, all righty then. Well, let me just say that we're going to scroll back, because I know there's a lot of Facebook kicked you out. I'm sure, Marita, they do. In fact, Kyle, I don't take medication, and I do not want to take medication. I work very hard to not take medication if I can avoid it. I take vitamins if I feel that I am low on any particular vitamin. Sometimes I take a multivitamin. It's good to keeps your energy up. No, I avoid medications. I do not think we should be living on medications. Hey, Maurice, how's it going? Good to see you. So all the blue states releasing prisoners. Yes, isn't this crazy, Sharon? The blue states are releasing prisoners, but these are the kind of things that exactly why I say everyone has a right to understand what that is. Why is that? Even if you believe, in fact, even more so, if you believe that we shouldn't be going out because of the virus, I literally choke on how hilarious it is. I would think that what you would want is prisoners who might have the virus to stay in prison, where they're not going to be running around spreading the virus to you. So bad. Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, good. Good to see that Thaddeus is doing better. Unfortunately, our good friend Thaddeus, Dion Alexander, injured himself. He burned himself. He had surgery on his hand, and he is in the hospital right now. Thank heavens, he was able to get care, and that there wasn't a problem. So, it is an emergency, and they need to take care of him, and he's just doing well, but it's hard, and he doesn't take a lot of medications. He's like me. He doesn't take a lot of pain medications, and he tries to very much keep his pain medications to a minimum. I'm the same way. If I don't need them, I don't take them. If I don't need them, I don't take them. Now, my sister, on the other hand, she's a type 1 diabetic. She has the pump. She has the insulin pump. She has the glucose monitor built, implanted glucose monitor. We call her the Borg, because she's got all these, parts mounted to her. We tease her. That's how our family rolls. But, I'm not saying that there isn't a need for medicine, but certainly there isn't a need for medicine when there isn't a need for it. If you are a healthy person, you're taking care of yourself, you certainly don't need to fall into this trap of chronic medication for things like blood thinning, there's so many things that we used to, back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't take medications for everything. We'd had aspirin regimens. People would drink red wine that would thin the blood. There's different ways that we would, lifestyle choices, health and food choices. That's what we basically went with. And then, of course, the pharmaceutical industry became able to advertise to us directly. And much of what we see today is a result of that, because they can make a lot of money selling us drugs that we have to take every single day. It's unfortunate. So that's the situation we are in. All right. Now, that is our show for today, folks. I want to let you know we'll be back again on Monday. We're going to continue to talk about Reopen America. We're going to continue to talk about moving forward, getting a plan from our government. We're going to continue to talk about where we fall into the understanding of what's what's difficult about this plot the New World Order has put upon us is it is certainly layered with, of course, as casting director says, are you a Q person? It's layered with a lot of misinformation and information. From Q people, it's layered with a lot of misinformation from China. It's layered with a lot of misinformation from the mainstream media. And it's this web of confusion and intrigue. And so everyone's falling. It's kind of like you can't not have part of the conspiracy. Everybody believes in some part of the conspiracy. It's just which part of it do they believe in? It's kind of funny, actually, finding out how much of what is going on. I'm not really about either the extremes, but I certainly can see what's going on in regards to the globalist agenda operated by the World Health Organization through the UN to do as much economic damage as possible and to be able to utilize the World Bank to help these countries, which, as you know, will give them a great deal of control. And so we're going to see that unfold, and we're going to continue to talk about it. We're going to continue to push back on it, because if we here in the United States can get back to work as quickly as possible and begin to end the fear, we can twist back some of these features of the hoax that seem very, very difficult. I mean, how do you deal with the fact that they're labeling deaths that aren't COVID deaths as COVID deaths? Well, we need to actually start looking at the losses you're seeing in cancer, in diabetes, and these other deaths, because we do keep a reasonable calculation of what people die of. To be fair, it's kind of interesting when you start to look up the statistics, and we are going to see precipitous drops in those diseases as we see COVID become the cause of death. So there's ways to continue to look at the situation, and we need to keep studying it. We also need to keep engaging our government. It's so important that we keep letting the government know that we are not happy with the situation, and whether it is today, tomorrow, or April 31st, we need to get back to work. Certainly some of these longer extensions are utterly absurd, and certainly many of these measures can be rescinded right now. Prisoners being let out, that can be stopped today. There's no reason for it. There's zero reason for it whatsoever. The deciding what is essential and non-essential because people are slowing down the line, there's no reason for it. There's no reason for it whatsoever. The forced shutdown of businesses that are person to person but are still necessary, such as beauty salons, grooming facilities, restaurants, all of these sort of gyms, we could increase our protocol, but these things are needed. We are becoming unhealthy. We are becoming sickly. We can't even go to the DMV and finish our inspection, our vehicle inspection, and get our car registered. So we are compelled by the shutdown to be scofflaws. There's no reason for that. There is no reason that the DMV couldn't put up plastic glass in front of their already plastic everything and make it quite safe for everyone with a little bit of effort. So we certainly need to continue to push back on that. And we will. We are starting to see that in the grocery stores. They do themselves a disservice when they start to use the methods such as putting up the plexiglass, and they show how quickly that can be done. It can be done everywhere. We shouldn't be closed. We should go back to work. That's what we're going to keep pushing on. We'll be back Monday, casting director. We'll be back Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, sometimes we go a little bit late. Sometimes we get started a little bit late. They slow me down. Facebook, as of course, always a challenge. But we will be back again on Monday. I want everybody over the weekend. Look, you can't call your governor. You can't call your mayor over the weekend, but you can email and you can write a letter. So make it your mission to write an email. Look, you can send emails every day. You can write a different email every day. Just keep doing it. But you don't have to. Just do one over the weekend. Everyone who's listening, write or email your governor or mayor. Whoever's put the shutdown in your state, whoever is putting in these measures, write them, demand a plan. Simple stuff. Until Monday, y'all. This is Suzzanne Monk. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, I almost forgot, you guys. We do this every time. Oh, I'm glad I remember. Okay, so where's my page of the things we do? So important. Oh, I almost forgot. It's in here somewhere. There we go. Our to-dos. Every day, you guys. We need to pray, we need to live, and we need to continue to hug. We're physical people. We're physical beings. It's so important hug somebody who's willing. Find a friend, find a family member. It's okay to touch people. We cannot fear touching one another. This is who human beings are. We're making ourselves more sick by not hugging each other. So, and of course, as the paper always says, number one, most important, pray. So let's pray. Let's get a nice prayer in for the weekend, as we like to do. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for all these great folks who have been here to listen tonight. And I want to thank you for this great country that we have been given, Heavenly Father. All of us know that there is such a turmoil, such a darkness, such a sadness in the country right now because of the conditions that we see our economy in, because of the fear we see people from the virus, because of the sickness from those who may have contracted this or other illnesses. We certainly see a great deal of suffering, and we know that people are hurting out there, Heavenly Father. And it's sad to see that in such a great nation that people would suffer so drastically, that people would be led by their leaders, by their government, into such poverty, into such difficult situations through no fault of their own. And so, Heavenly Father, I just pray that you continue to give us the ability to turn that around. God, I ask one thing for this weekend. Give us, the American people, the ability to turn this around. Give us the ability to turn our economy back on. Give us the ability to convince our lawmakers that they must make better decisions. Give us the ability to convince our business owners and our churches and our pundits and our political leaders, our journalists, our citizen journalists, to stand up and push back. Give us congressmen and senators and leaders who join in our message and push back. Give strength to those governors who have resisted, Heavenly Father, and continue to inspire those who may have caved to pull back. Give us the ability to do this. It seems like such an insurmountable task, Heavenly Father. And I know so many people have talked to me over the past several days how difficult it is to keep up hope. But I know that if you can fill our hearts with hope, I know that if you can do all of the miraculous things that we have seen in this beautiful world, if you can create the heavens and the earth, Heavenly Father, I know that you can give us the ability to fix this nation and heal this world. And I ask you for that. I ask you for that in this prayer tonight, as I ask you, as always, to protect each and every person listening, to protect our president, continue to give him the wise words and lead him in the proper way, Heavenly Father. And I thank you for all that you have done, and for each day that you wake us up strong and as free as we can be. Please, Heavenly Father, help us to become even more free, so that your beautiful will might be shown as a shining light to the world. That when individuals have individual free will, it is only through that free will that we are able to truly have a relationship with you, our Heavenly Father. I ask these things, God, and I thank you. I ask these things in the name of your Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Love you guys. Love, love, love you guys. Until next time, we'll see you all on Monday. Trumping out.